2 Republican senators who have opposed Donald Trump before and voted for his conviction during the impeachment over his role in the insurrection, have now opposed him again. They're in powerful positions to stop Donald Trump's assault on our health, on our safety, on our medicine, and on our science, which is being executed by his head of the Department of Health and Human Services, the non-doctor, non-scientist, anti-vaxxer named Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And now we have Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, who heads the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, which oversees the Centers for Disease Control and ultimately oversees vaccine policies in America. And Susan Collins from Maine has joined him, and she's in a safe seat. Both of these Republicans in the past, although they're running for re-election, have opposed Trump before, voting for his conviction. Now they're opposing him again off of the firing of Dr. Susan Monterez, a elite member of our health community who got fired after only 3 weeks on the job after being confirmed by the Senate because she wouldn't go along with Robert F. Kennedy's demented, unscientific, dangerous vaccine policies. Remember, just 2 weeks ago, RFK Jr. fired all 17 members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization. All of them. Right before we got into flu season, right before we got into COVID season. And he started to replace them with people that agreed with him, including anti-vax people and deniers. That troubled many of the scientists and biologists and immunologists and virologists that were serving our nation as the brain trust about our public health and science. Normally that role that RFK Jr. is filling would normally be filled with somebody who's got a history, a successful record in public health, usually a doctor or a scientist, not an environmental lawyer who sucked up to Donald Trump and said he was going to throw his 1 or 2% of people that were voting for him towards him in order to get elected. That was the gift that RFK Jr. got. He got to destroy our public health in return for supporting Donald Trump's campaign. And now we have courageous people like Dr. Susan Monterez, who's being represented by Abby Lowell. Remember the name Abby Lowell, because many of the people I'm going to talk about on Legal AF over the next 2 or 3 years are represented by Abby Lowell. He represents Letitia James, who's being probed by the Trump administration for mortgage fraud and for civil rights violations. He represents Lisa Cook, who had a hearing just today that I'll report on a little bit later about her role, her position on the Board of Governors, where she was fired from that. He's representing all of, and it seems to be all the women. What's the other common denominator? Letitia James, Lisa Cook, Susan Monterez, all fired by Donald Trump, all leaders in their field, all got fired and now represented by Abby Lowell. And she's not going quietly. And now we have both Susan Collins and Bill Cassidy saying they are very troubled by the firing of Dr. Monterez because she's effectively become a whistleblower. She has said out loud, the reason I got fired is I don't agree with the vaccine policies and protocols and the science behind them or the lack of science behind them, and I won't rubber stamp it for RFK Jr. He's not making America healthy again. He's not having what he said during his confirmation process. Let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. He's not doing any of that. He's using these self-selected studies that are not very scientific, that have been debunked by real science. He's putting them behind a black box and an opaque wall, so we don't even know what they are. And now he's saying, well, you can't get a COVID vaccine unless you have a consultation with your doctor, and you certainly can't get it at pharmacies. And babies shouldn't get vaccines that are recommended unless there's a heavy consultation with a doctor. And I mean, all of this crazy stuff. And enough is enough. It's gone so far that Senator Cassidy has called for the committee, the Advisory Immunology and Vaccine Committee, to not meet on September 18th. And if they do meet, based on all the turmoil and the lack of leadership and the pseudoscience being used, he says any recommendations that they make should be ignored. He's doing this at great political sacrifice because he's up in Louisiana and he has a challenger and he wants Trump's support, but listen, he's a statesman, I guess, when it comes to health. And we appreciate that. And of course, Susan Monterez isn't the only person that is out of a job. The 4 other top jobs, we'll put up a flow chart here, or an organizational chart here, to show you all the people that are no longer in the CDC that matter. These are the top people. We're not talking about low-level people. This isn't the file. This is the rank. And they're all gone because none of them will sacrifice their professional ethics and credentials and their desire, and all they've done since they graduated college was focus on public health and making people well. They're not going to sacrifice that in order to serve under RFK Jr., and Donald Trump is letting them do it. I assure you, every one of Donald Trump's kids got vaccinated. And so this whole fight, and that's what RFK Jr. is doing. He's making a fight over his anti-vaxxing policies. One of the people who resigned from this, here are the people that have resigned along with the one that got fired, Dr. Monterez. Deb Horry, the chief medical officer and deputy director of program and science on the CDC, resigned. Dan Jernigan, director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Disease, resigned. Dimitri Daskalakis, director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, resigned. Jennifer Layden, the director for the Office of Public Health Data, Donald Trump hates data, she resigned. Dr. Daskalakis said, I'm not able to serve in this role any longer because of the ongoing weaponization of public health. Dr. Hurry said, you are the best team I've ever worked with, and you continue to shine despite this dark cloud over the agency and our profession. She also said that science and the CDC should never be censored or subject to political pauses or interpretations. She further wrote, I'm committed to protecting the public's health, but the ongoing changes prevent me from continuing in my job as a leader of the agency. Bill Cassidy has said that any recommendations that come out of the committee on vaccines and immunization September 18th should be rejected by the American people. Let me give you the quote there. Or let me give you the quote from the lawyers, Abby Lowell and Mark Zayed. When CDC Director Susan Monterez refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fired dedicated health experts, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she's been targeted. And this is what the spokesperson for the Trump administration said in response. Listen to this. As her attorney's statement makes abundantly clear, the one I just read, Susan Monterez is not aligned with the president's agenda of making America healthy again. Because she wants to protect public health? Because she won't rubber stamp unscientific, dangerous studies? Because she won't rubber stamp Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s bizarre, demented allergy to vaccines that help Americans, to COVID vaccines that help children? That's the reason she was terminated? It goes on, the spokesman goes on, Kush Desai says that since she refused to resign, despite informing the leadership of her intent to do so, the White House has terminated her. Now, her lawyers have said, not so fast. She was nominated by the president. The president has to fire her. And he hasn't actually formally fired her, although by now he probably has. But the point is, we have Republican senators standing up against Donald Trump at great political sacrifice to protect the public health and to try to take down Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He never should have been nominated. He never should have been confirmed. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is an admitted addict. He's anti-science. He's anti-medicine. He's not a scientist. He's not a doctor. He doesn't hold a PhD. He doesn't know a darn thing about immunology or virology or vaccines other than his kooky, crazy theories and conspiracy theories. He's packed the CDC and the Department of of Health and Human Services with vaccine deniers and science deniers as our chief public health official. He was obscenely unqualified. And if we had Democrats in the majority in the House, he'd be impeached and removed. I'm Michael Popok. Let's continue to follow this together. You're here on Legal AF. Hit the free subscribe button. Come over to Legal AF Substack. We're doing some great live work there. I do live reporting. We've got articles up there, analyses. I post all of the legal filings and opinions by courts all on the Legal AF Substack. Help us there, continue to grow that community as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touches Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.